Hey everybody, welcome back into the lounge here for week 5. It's been a pretty exciting week as always. A lot of close games, a lot of exciting games. Got a lot to go over this week, so buckle up. This might be a little bit of a longer video, but we're going to do the best we can. We've reached a little over a third of the way through our regular season, so figured it's kind of a good time to just kind of dive into some numbers and just kind of do a little research here that maybe a lot of you aren't really doing yourself or even realize, I guess. But first things first, let's go over the scores and records real quick. So again, week 5 here, we had TOB Committee versus the Gorton Fishermen. Vanessa takes the big win, 116-89 over Logan, so she stays undefeated at 5-0. So great job to her, and she stays on top of this whole entire league. Big things coming from her. Next up, we had Short Bus Driver going against Beats by Ray. Short Bus completely fell apart with a 90-point performance. It gets outdueled by Beats 144-90. So great job, Tim. Kind of bounce back week. We'll kind of dive into your guys' game here in just a few minutes. Moving down the list, we had Don. Big win over Big Fish. Don 132-108 for Big Fish. So congrats, Don. Big Dano still looking for that first win, man. It's elusive, dude, but it's going to come one of these days. And then moving down the list, we got Caddy gets his first official win of the season with a big win, 170-149 over Wardens. Top 2 scorers in the league this week having to play each other. So great job by Isaac to pull out the first win of the season in pretty astonishing fashion, to be honest with you. So great job, Isaac. Next game was Watson's. Bath and Spa versus Team Johnson. Watson's didn't have too much trouble with this one, 128-73. So I know Team Johnson's kind of taking a little bit of a nosedive here, but Mark's got some tricks up his sleeve. I see him working that waiver wire this week, so see if he can't bounce back. And then the last game of the week, big division matchup between myself, Motorboaters, and Coffee Creamers, and I pull out the 144-132 win. Kind of flip-flop to the top of my division. So great game by Braden, and again we'll kind of dive into those here in just a few minutes. All right, now we're just going to start, we're going to kind of dive into the numbers a little bit, kind of break some things down for you guys. But first things first, we'll go division by division here and just kind of do a standings update. TOB again stays undefeated. She's 5-0, leading the noob division. Second place there still is Logan at 2-2-1. Caddy moves to third, or stays in third at 1-3-1, and Big Fish bringing up the rear at 0-5. Next up, we have the somewhere in the middle division. Watson's Bath and Spa stays on top of that division, 4-1. We'll get into some numbers here in a minute. That's kind of going to be a little bit shocking to some of you guys, but anyway, Watson's 4-1, stays on top of that division, followed by Don, who's 3-2. Then Beats by Ray 2-3, and Johnson 2-3. So pretty tight divisional race there. And then in the Vets division, this is a tight one as well. Again, myself, Motorboaters, I jumped 2 spots this week, back up to the top spot, 3-2 for me. Over Short Bus Driver, who's also 3-2, Coffee Creamer, who's also 3-2, and then Wardens, who's 1-4. Keep in mind, Wardens is only 1-4, but he did just have a 140 some odd point week in a losing effort. So, and that's kind of some of these numbers we're going to kind of dive into a little bit. So, again, when I said there's some numbers that are going to be pretty shocking to everybody, one of those is Drew is leading his division 4-1. He's actually second overall in the entire league. He is also second from the bottom in overall scoring at 567. So it's kind of, it's not how much you score, it's who you play. And weirdly enough, he scored 567. His points against, so teams that he plays against, have scored a total of 457. To put that in perspective, Drew's opponents have scored a total of 457, and Scott Ward's opponents for the Wardens have scored 687 points. Scott himself has scored 595 or 94 points. So you feel like those numbers are going to kind of work themselves out, but it's just kind of a weird fluky thing. Same kind of thing with Vanessa, whereas she is scoring better, 626. Again, she's giving up 478 points scored against her. Those are the only two owners in the league that are in the 400 in points against. Everybody else is in the 500s and 600s. So, like I said, Scott was 687. Tim is another one who takes bad beats. He's got 690 scored against him compared to his 607, which is a pretty good number. But just kind of going down some overall numbers. Some of the top scorers. Coffee Creamer does lead overall scoring at 654. The only other players in 600s are Beats, Don, T.O.B. and Gordon are all in the 600s, and then there's a couple guys kind of knocking on the door, myself included. So just kind of wanted to do a little breakdown on some of the numbers. You know, it does get a little interesting the more you kind of dive in. You know, another thing that I don't know if people will look for or know how to look for, it's a little easier on a computer than it is on the app. But so position rankings, who's number one at each position in scoring. I kind of went down to top three per position, and I only did quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end. Who cares about kickers and defenses? I mean, we use them, but we're not keeping track. So number one QB is Jalen Hurts. So guy can't find a win, has number one player and number one quarterback in the league. So Jalen Hurts, number one quarterback, followed by Josh Allen, and believe it or not, Justin Fields, number three. So that's got to make you Bears fans feel pretty good. Moving on to the running back position, CMC, of course, is running away with it. He's by far the leading scorer, and it's really not even that close. And then Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert are 2 and 3, so two Miami Dolphin running backs in the top three positions for the running back overall scoring. Obviously, Achane's out, so that number is going to go down for him, but still pretty impressive 5 weeks through the season. As far as receivers go, number one, Tyreek, number two, Stephon Diggs, and number three, Puka Nacua. So pretty good company there for a rookie to be in. And then tight ends, also led by a rookie, believe it or not, Sam Laporta, number one tight end, followed by Travis Kelce, of course, and then T.J. Hawkinson, third in scoring from among tight ends. So just think that's kind of pretty cool. You know, I always like to kind of look at that information, and I don't know, it's just fun getting into the stats of everything. So another thing I kind of did a little rundown on is notable rookies. You know, I was reading something last week that talked about this could go down in history as one of the greatest rookie class or rookie drafts of all time, and that may very well be the case. So I just want to give you some overall numbers for some of these rookies, and some you've heard of, some you may not have. Puka Nacua, of course, the wide receiver from Los Angeles, has 116 overall points. I believe he is third or so, or fourth or sixth, somewhere around there in his rank. Other notable names that some of you guys may or may not know, but just to kind of help keep your eye out, some up and comers. Jordan Addison, he's on my team. He's ranked 27 among wide receivers. Josh Downs, if you're a Colts fan, which most of you are, you're seeing how he's starting to take off. He's only 46 right now among receivers, but I expect that number to continue to rise along with his targets. Running back, Bijan Robinson is 8th among running backs. Jaleel McLaughlin is 29th among running backs. Tank Dell, 23rd among receivers. Sam Laporta, as I mentioned, number 1 among tight ends. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 32 among running backs. Devon Achane, number 2 among running backs. And at the quarterback position, C.J. Stroud gets into the top 12. I mean, keeping in mind this is a 12-man league, that's pretty good for him. So on a team that has two rookie quarterbacks, and they're both in the top 20. So just thought that was interesting for some of you guys that don't like to trade or take a chance. Keep in mind these rookies are out here producing. I just gave you a list of about 15 names that are all worthy of roster spots, especially, and could very well start for anybody any given week. All right, we're back here. We're going to start diving into the games of the week. And we're going to start with the TOB committee versus the Gordon Fishermen. Again, that total was 116 for TOB to 89 for the Gordon Fishermen. This was it wasn't the most exciting game. I'm not gonna lie. You know, Dak Prescott didn't do anything for Vanessa in her quarterback position. Her Dallas defense put up a 0, believe it or not. So really no number 2 receiver after Diggs. And then for Logan, nobody on his team scored over 20. He had 2 1-pointers, 1 2-pointer, and it's just kind of one of those weird games. It just couldn't take off for kind of either one of them. So Vanessa did get to 116 though, and stayed unbeaten. So good for her. And no noticeable bench points there. There's not too much they could really do. And for Logan, his best running back, his best player probably on his roster outside of Patrick Mahomes is Kenneth Walker. Happened to be on a bye for that game, so just kind of dumb luck. And everybody's going to have to deal with that, but definitely didn't help Logan out. So congrats to Vanessa for staying unbeaten. I highly suspect that number's going to, or she's going to get a first loss coming up in a week or two. But if she makes some right moves here, she might be able to stay unbeaten. Who knows? So congratulations again. See you next week. Next game of the week was Short Bus Driver versus Beats by Ray. Beats by Ray dominating in a 54-point win, 144-90. In this one, Short Bus Driver, he dealt with the Justin Jefferson injury. He obviously played a little bit and scored a little bit. He's been IR'd since that game, so he's out for a minimum of 4 weeks. So that hurt. And then Jason had 6 single-digit scores. That's a lot when you're only talking, nine positions in total. So, and then Laporta had a big game for him, as he's kind of seemingly to do in every game at this point. But Jason just really didn't have much when you got 6 single-point guys or single-digit guys scoring. Beats, on the other hand, had 4 20-plus guys. Cooper Kupp comes back. Everybody wondered kind of how that would work out with Nakua and Cooper Kupp. It works out great. I think they both went over 20. So that might be a real kind of dynamic duo there. And then Tim, I've been warning you this for weeks. The Tank Dell and Nico Collins thing, where you're constantly going back and forth and you're playing from last week's numbers and you're just constantly chasing. You did it again. I know Dell got hurt a little bit, but he still outscored Nico, and I know why you put in Nico, because he outscored Dell last week on your bench. I mean, you've got to figure out a way to make this work, man. Get rid of one of them, start offering trades, do something. But you're going to be chasing these points all year long if you don't do something to get rid of 2 receivers on the same team, man. It's a recipe for disaster. So hope you're able to figure it out, because as I said earlier, your points, you're scoring. How much are you leaving on your bench week after week is the question I have. And again, this was a game where there wasn't too much on the bench either for either of these guys. So it was just what it was. It was just a good old-fashioned beatdown by Tim over Jason. So congrats, Tim, on the win. Kind of keeps you on the right side of the law there and in the hunt for the division. So that's a big division win for you, too. Or no, I'm sorry, that's not a division win for you. But either way, just a win's a win at this point. You needed it. Next game of the week is going to be Don versus Big Fish. Big Dano and Big Fish still looking for that big, that first win of the year. He can't get anything going. He seems to be consistently scoring over 100 points, but he's just not getting any real depth. He doesn't have any blow up players. He's not getting anybody to really score over 20. He did get 30 out of Hurts this year, but as far as his receivers or running back positions, which are what the guys you want to explode, he's just not getting it. He had 5 guys scoring that 10 to 17 point range, and then coupled that with 3 single-digit scorers. So it just kind of added up to not very many points, to be honest with you. Don, on the other hand, big trade for Gabe Davis paid off huge for him in week 1 after the trade. 23 points there. Pickens blew up for the Steelers. I don't expect that to happen too often, but if they open up that playbook a little bit and kind of get out of Tomlin's play style and start kind of throwing the ball, that may be something that does happen more often than we might think. But Donnie was just kind of solid all around this week. He scores. I give him a hard time about his roster. I like to just kind of poke fun at Donnie, but he's got something built there. And could it be better? Yeah, but couldn't we all be better? But he's consistently scoring. He's scoring over 115, 120 on a somewhat regular basis. So if you're going to beat Donnie, you're going to beat him by putting up good points. You're not going to backdoor into a win like some of these other teams are doing. Again, for the 3rd game in a row, no real noticeable adjustments could have been made with as far as players on their bench. So congrats, Don, on the big win. Next on the list was Caddy Waddy versus the Wardens. Again, highest scoring game of the weekend. At this point, I somewhat feel bad for Scott if it wasn't for the fact that A, he's been playing fantasy football since I was probably in diapers, and B, he's a Chicago Bears fan, and he's been sitting on the, I believe, the third, maybe fourth ranked receiver in fantasy football, and chooses to sit him on his bench 2 weeks in a row, giving up 28 points and 56. So, I mean, I don't know what else it was going to take, because I believe before the 28-point game that happened last week, it was a 17-point game before that. Not sure what you were waiting on for him to do to make it any point, kind of more of a point to get in your lineup. But yeah, you know how that goes. That 54, I believe it was, pretty much cost you a win right there if you had him in for any one of those players that were in a suitable position. You would have won that game. And then as far as Caddy Waddy, we got a new season scoring record per individual at 56 for Jamar Chase. Guy who says he's always open backed it up this past weekend. He was always open, and then he got a whopping 37 out of Justin Fields, which is incredible for a quarterback. And then he had 2 more 20-pointers, so just poured it on. I really thought Scott was going to be able to take this game over kind of at any point, but I mean, Caddy just kept scoring in bunches, and did a real nice job picking up his first win. If that's how you're going to get the first win of the season, man, 5 weeks in, that's the way to do it right there. So good job, Isaac. And then for Scott, he loses the chain this week to the injury after a 27-point outburst. He had 4 20-pointers, and then Nakua did his thing again like we talked about earlier. But, he had a lot. Second highest scoring point total this week, just not enough to win that particular game. So that's just a bad beat, man. All right, moving on to the next game. It's going to be Watson's Bath and Spa versus Team Johnson. Bath and Spa takes it 128 to 73. So we went from a record in one facet in the last game with a new record as far as personal individual scoring. We have a new season low for a team this year, and that's Team Johnson sucking it up for 73 points. That's the worst anybody's done all year in 5 weeks. Flat out terrible. Probably should have accepted many a trades that's been thrown his way, but I think he's been hanging out in the Dan Reddick camp, where you just kind of sit tight and hope things happen, and they just don't. But in this game, Mark had 6 single-digit scorers. Like, golly, that's like throwing up the white flag before you even start. Nobody scored over 15, and no real bench depth. I mean, I think he only had 2 bench guys even playing. So just an absolute disaster of a week for Mark. Good thing he was on vacation, so he was able to have some fun, because gosh, that would have been miserable to be sitting there hoping for something to see that on Sunday. As far as Watson's go, he had 3 guys over 20, which is kind of funny because his running back scored a total of 7 points. But he's getting the much needed help coming back this week from Saquon. And then Waller's been looking good for the Giants, who are an absolute just mess. But Drew just kind of did his thing. Again, for somebody who's second lowest in scoring overall this year, he finds a way to win each and every week. So, I mean, I just have to tip my cap to him. He didn't make any real mistakes as far as the bench goes either. So, just a big win for Drew. He's kind of hanging in there, man. Just kind of staking claim to that division. And then the 6th and final game of the week was myself, Motivotors versus Coffee Creamers. Coffee Creamers comes into this one leading the division. I take him down 144 to 132. This was a big divisional game because I actually went from 3rd to 1st in this game with my win coupled with the loss by Short Bus Driver. I had a total of 76 points from my running backs. And I just had a pretty good all-around day. Even Kirk Cousins, he kind of struggled and looked funky all day, but he somehow was able to muster up 19 points. I never felt like I was in jeopardy of really losing this game, but I felt like I could never really fully take control of it. I did leave a couple 20s on my bench, but I don't know if you guys have perused my roster or not. I mean, it's if you need to trade, you gotta look me up. I mean, I'm not saying this with confidence, but I got a deep ass roster. And then as far as coffee goes, losing AR probably in a sense really costing the game. I mean, he only lost by 12. The way AR's been rushing touchdowns, I really feel like he probably would have won had he stayed in. But on the bright side, he's got C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud's actually the 12th ranked quarterback, 5 spots ahead of Richardson because Richardson can't stay healthy. Alvin Kamara seems to be like a boom. Seems to be all systems go. So a great trade for him. I'm kind of kicking myself for trading him, but it is what it is. You gamble, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Tyreek did his normal 36, and for Brady, he had a 22 or 26 point tight end on his bench. Unfortunately, I think if I did the numbers right, even if he would have played him in the starting spot for the tight end that he did start, he would have ended up losing by 1. So really, it comes down to woulda, coulda, shouldas, and injuries. I mean, injury bugs really killing people this year. And when those injuries happen earlier in a game, it makes it rough. So it was a close game. It was a fun game to watch. I know we were tied at 115 apiece, and then we were tied again at 131. So he ended with 132. So that obviously was pretty late in the matchup. So yeah, that was just a real fun one to kind of keep track of, and I had my eyes glued to the screen all the way till the end for that one. So. Hey, great game, Braden. A little tip of the cap to you, and we'll do it again later on in the season. So that's kind of the recap this week, guys. If anybody's ever got anything, just reach out. I feel free to kind of work you in. Jason was one to kind of reach out to me about the point total for Drew and how kind of odd it is to have a record that good and point total that low. But hey, we're all looking out for each other. So if there's something you want to see on these videos, just holler at me. Again, great week 5. It's been a real fun season. I've been talking to more and more owners. Everybody seems to be enjoying it, and hope you guys come back next week and just have fun with it. And real quick, I know Braden's cousin Judah likes to watch these videos with him. Ran into you at Walmart last week, so just want to give you a little shout out, Judah. You guys have a good night. See you next week.